Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Leah Massey, and today I'm excited to be joined by my guest, Katie McKirk-Manarino.
Mhm.
Hello, Katie. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
To start things off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company,
Mhm.
and how did you get started in title and closing industry?
Sure. So I am 48 and I started in title when I was 19. I answered an ad out of the newspaper,
Mhm.
Pittsburgh Post Gazette,
Oh,
for a part-time position at a title company downtown Pittsburgh.
okay.
And I worked there for 5 years, and it was NJB Settlement.
Mhm.
Nancy Benatti, who I'm still friends with, I'm actually
Okay.
going to see her in April. She taught me everything I know,
Uh-huh.
and I just worked my way up in her business, and eventually you can't learn this in college,
Uh-huh.
so
Yep.
eventually got to a point where I worked for other people and just opened my own for reasons we'll probably get into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
but that's how I learned.
Okay, since you already mentioned about opening your own, was owning a clothing company always the goal, or did that come later in your career?
Definitely not the goal, never on my radar.
Mhm.
Starting so young, I kind of realized that I was good at it.
Mhm.
eh, how do you realize you're good at it? You can keep up with the pressure. There's a lot of
Mhm.
deadlines. You just have to have extraordinary consistency, attention to detail. And also, I didn't have a college degree yet. So I told myself I needed to stay somewhere for 5 years before I started looking for another job.
Mhm.
And I had kids young, and it was very hard on a young mother's life to be in title.
Yeah.
So I tried to get out around the age of 23 or 4.
Uh-huh.
No, actually maybe 25, and it didn't last. I got out for 6 months and I ended up going back working for another company, still realizing in the in our local market,
Mhm.
I seemed to be creating a good reputation for my work ethic and
Mhm.
workflow that eventually I got to a point where I was so frustrated with the company I was working for. At the time, I was early 30s,
Mhm.
that I talked to my husband at the time, and we agreed maybe I should
Mhm.
try this for myself. And I thought I needed 6 closings a month to, have the same income or steady
Right.
income.
Mhm.
And so I opened Blue Sky. I gave my company that I was working for 30 days notice. I opened Blue Sky in that 30 days on the side, and that was in June of 2009.
Mhm.
And it grew like 17 to 20%
Yeah.
every year, just kept. And I think because I had been in the industry long enough that people knew who I was,
Mhm.
hence why I have two names, because you can't drop one.
Yeah.
Um, McGurk is my maiden name. Manarino is my married name, even though I'm happily divorced now. I
Yeah.
can't drop it yet
Yeah.
because some people know me as both. But it's just been very successful. But I think that's because of my work ethic and how I
Mm.
treat a staff and how I manage the realtors I do business with and their clients.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to say with about how I manage things internally.
And so when did you start to realize that that was actually one of the main
And
reasons?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting perspective.
Uh-huh.
That's not something I think a lot of people realize, is that it is our personality
Yeah.
that makes us successful as salespeople. Um, I honestly, I'm a middle child,
Mhm.
so I can delegate. I can make jokes and I can deflect and I can balance personality
Yeah.
as a middle child. You kind of learn
Yeah.
how to just fit in the system.
Mhm.
And I, grew up in the city. I'm a city kid, so I have grit,
Mhm.
and I have a hard skin,
Mhm.
that I don't get offended easily, and
Yeah.
I love to make people proud. I,
Mhm.
I, I have that, you know, capacity where I want to perform to make somebody happy with my work.
Mhm.
And so I did realize that I had excellent relationships with employers and that they were very pleased with my work volume, but they just couldn't ever pay me. I was never going to get paid more
Mhm.
than my peers or unless I did it for myself. I was never going to climb a ladder,
Mhm.
especially the company I worked for when I finally opened Blue Sky. It was a family owned business.
Mhm.
You were just never going to get anywhere unless you had the same last name.
Okay.
And I realized that. And
Mhm.
I don't blame them for that.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
that's your model, that's fine.
Mhm.
But I knew for me and my family that I could do better.
Mhm.
And so it was just the courage and had a lot to do with personality. A
Okay.
lot to do with personality.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I can tell the personalities there even from your website.
Oh, thank
Even
you.
your the
Mhm.
pictures, it's a lot of just fun, like just makes you
Happy,
say happy pictures. Yeah,
happy,
just
yeah.
fun and yeah.
People have actually told me
Mhm.
that we look like we have too much fun
Yeah.
by those pictures, right? And that says a lot about their personality.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
have actually said that to me.
Wow.
I looked at your website and you guys look like you have too much fun.
Hmm.
And it's like I think they don't realize that you can do both at
Yes,
work.
that's the thing.
They
Mhm.
maybe their workplace is miserable and they just don't realize that that's not everywhere,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So thank you for saying that.
yeah. You're welcome.
Mhm.
Now, what were some early lessons you learned when entering the real estate title world?
That time, how to manage time,
Mhm.
because everything is extraordinarily time sensitive.
Mhm.
That when you get a new order, you have to order lien letters right away. We have to order your title search right away.
Mhm.
That when the title search comes in, you have to review it right away. You have to constantly communicate with the real estate agents. So it was really number one was to manage time efficiently
Mhm.
and work life balance. When times were different,
Mhm.
because you're thinking when I started it was 1997,
Mhm.
1998. The expectation of male versus female, at any workplace, we still had to wear pantyhose.
Mhm.
We still had to wear pantyhose,
Mhm.
skirts, and heels if we were a closing agent.
Oh, wow.
So times were different, and it was just a matter of getting to work on time, really just showing up every day,
Mhm.
consistently showing up and managing work.
Yeah. Well, that's good that at actually that age, because we're like around we're the same age,
Yeah.
that you had that skill that young. I don't think I had that skill.
Well, I also had a baby. So I had a baby early,
Yeah.
right after high school, really a year after high school. So I don't, but I do think that's my personality
Mhm.
that I am ADHD. I'm not
Mhm.
embarrassed to admit that because
Mhm.
ADHD, you can really function at a high capacity
Mhm.
if you know how to, manipulate that whatever your degree of ADHD is.
Mhm.
So I could manage at a high capacity. I kind of work better under pressure.
Mhm.
When I eventually did graduate college but when I was 32,
Mhm.
and I did, I went to CCAC
Mhm.
after high school, and I was always that person that wrote papers, really good papers,
Mhm.
like the night before they were due. I am really good working under pressure,
Mhm.
and so that stayed with me,
Mhm.
I'm starting to slow down now. I'm starting to feel like
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
tired,
Well,
like
yeah.
it's hitting me,
Mhm.
but I have a staff that's wonderful and we balance each other.
Mhm.
But yes, it's because a lot of it because I had a baby
Mhm.
and I had no other choice.
Oh, okay.
My mother was not the kind of mother that made me a comfortable bed and let me stay. She said, "You're having a baby. I raised my kids. You got to get your own
Okay.
place."
Mhm.
So I was very responsible very, very early.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the day that I can just sleep until 7:30. I'm not there yet.
Now, what inspired you to take the leap from working in the industry to owning your own company?
Honestly, just um, a bad manager.
Okay.
A bad manager. Wits end.
Mhm.
I was closing an extraordinary number of deals a month.
Mhm.
And when I say extraordinary, I mean 50 plus. 50 plus, traveling everywhere. My kids were 6 and 12.
Oh.
Young, both in sports,
Mhm.
both in activities. And I remember the day that I quit, a realtor was demanding that I schedule a late closing on a Friday. And I knew that I had to be out of town for one of my daughter's functions.
Mhm.
And I called the office, corporate office, and said, I just can't do this closing. And they said, well, you have to. Like, this is your job.
Mhm.
And I was sobbing. It was so upsetting that you just give and give and give and give and give. And there was never any, I don't know, leverage, or just it felt really unfair and unhealthy.
Mhm.
And I called my husband and said, I think I'm gonna do it
Mhm.
today. And he said, yeah, you should do it. You're ready. We'll
Yeah.
get through this.
Uh-huh.
And so I called back and quit, gave them a month notice,
Mhm.
and they didn't believe me. I think they kept saying, you're a little fish in a big pond.
Mm.
They really tried to hold me underwater and
Mm.
threaten that I could not get anywhere without them.
Yeah.
And that empowered me
Yeah.
to, like, well, let me show you what I can
Yeah.
do,
Mhm.
proving myself again. And it was very scary, but it was also very thrilling.
Mm.
I had a friend come into my office somewhat recently, and she's a professor and she's very successful. And I am in awe of her, that I couldn't even understand when she walked into my office. She's like, look what you did. Look what you've built. Look
Yeah.
at this. This is incredible. And women have such a hard time accepting the things that we've done,
Mhm.
that even in my head, my imposter syndrome was saying to me, you'd never had a choice. Anytime I did something, I never felt like it was a choice I could make. I
Mhm.
always felt like, you have to do this.
Mhm.
It never felt consciously like, well, I can decide to stay or go. It felt like, Kate, it's the end. It's time to go.
Mm.
It, and I have this drive, and I know other women can identify, and men. I know
Mhm.
everybody can identify. Certain personalities can identify with that drive.
Mhm.
And I said to her, everything that you see here is because I didn't have a choice. It just had to happen.
Mhm.
I never thought what I have today. It was just was never a thought, ever.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention, because you keep asking me about Blue Sky. Blue Sky closing, people ask me where the name comes
I was
from.
gonna ask you that.
It's because when there's something wrong with title, it's a cloud on title. It's called a
Mm.
cloud on
Yeah,
title.
yeah, yeah.
Blue Sky, no clouds.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you. That was, yeah.
Hmm.
I did that one by myself.
That's cool.
Thank you.
And that's maybe too, that even that right there, is that also too, I always think people that, entrepreneurs or people that have small
Hmm.
businesses or businesses, that they always are thinking. Like they're kind of thinking outside the box, or like not always conforming to what's kind of happening.
Hmm.
So I think that kind of they have that like feeling like I can't be here. I gotta,
You got to do
yeah, I
more.
got
You
too
have
much
to
inside
be,
of me. Yeah, it's like,
yes.
yeah,
One of my
yeah.
favorite phrases as a business person, well, there's two. One, competition breeds innovation, and it
Hmm.
truly does.
Hmm.
It was always, and it's not necessarily fear of the actual physical competitors, because I'm very friendly with a lot of my industry peers,
Hmm.
very friendly.
Hmm.
I am a female first. I'm
Hmm.
a mother, I
Hmm.
was a wife. I am a human being
Hmm.
before I'm a title agent,
Hmm.
and I will never disrespect my peers just because we are in the same market. I
Hmm.
don't play like that.
Hmm.
But competition breeds innovation, and I just would always think, what can I do that's s- you know, snappy, or like
Hmm.
just catchy, or what can I do to make this better for the consumer? What can I do to make this better for the real estate agent? So I am like hard enough on myself.
Hmm.
I don't need my competitors to
Yeah.
drive me. I do that very much on my own.
Hmm.
And that's a part of ADHD too. That is a blessing and a curse.
Hmm.
Um, my family used to say, why do you have to run the sweeper every night? Like, the queen's not coming to dinner. And I don't know. I like to see those lines when I wake up in the
Yeah.
morning. Like, there's something inside
Yeah.
where you're just driven to do something crazy
Yeah.
sometimes. And the other one was, when you own a small business, there's rent, and it is due every single day.
Mhm.
The rent is due every single day.
Mhm.
I used to say I have two children and a business, because a small business is like having a third child, an infant all the time.
Mhm.
An infant, because no matter what your other kids are doing, what your spouse is doing, what your neighborhood is doing, what your family is doing, who died, whose funeral, what vacation you want to take, that small business is always on the forefront of your mind.
Mhm.
How can I do this
Keep it going.
with them in my
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So kudos to I give so much credit to anyone that opens and is successful at a small business because it is a wild ride.
Yeah.
I remember my PCP said to me when I said I'm probably going to open my own. He said, "Don't do it." I'm like, "What? But you have your own." He's like,
Yeah.
"Don't do it." And after years, you kind of realize, like, "Oh, I see now why." But
But it goes along, it does what,
it's in
yeah.
your blood.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, you're going to do it.
Yeah. And how many years you been open, you said?
16.
16, see?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then we'll get to the title, but the last question is about the business. What part of your job today brings you the most satisfaction?
Mm. My staff, I'll be honest.
Mhm.
Totally honest. Relationships, I'll just say relationships because I don't think people realize realtors
Mhm.
realize, I was in an office with realtors for 5 years.
Mhm.
You genuinely have a camaraderie with those
Mhm.
people that when you open your own business and you by yourself and then you have one person, you have two people, you really miss
Mhm.
camaraderie.
Mhm.
You really miss the relationship with the humans you see every day.
Yeah.
Okay, the contact.
Mhm.
Um, that I have handpicked the people that work in my office. I have moved us to different seats in the office just based on personality structure,
Mhm.
because who we gel so beautifully
Mhm.
and we support each other and we genuinely love each other. And the realtors that I have realtors that have been loyal to me, since they started real estate, whether it was 10 years ago, 12 years
Yeah.
ago, or whether they met me and, knew me before I opened Blue Sky. I have realtors who are loyal to me from the beginning to me of like time.
Mhm.
And their relationship with me and my staff is very taken very seriously
Mhm.
and it's very endearing to us.
Yeah.
We go above and beyond for everybody that we do closings with because of the way we perform for a file, but personal relationships are what genuinely brings me joy
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's- Now let's talk about what you and your staff do in that office.
Okay.
What exactly is the role of a title company in the real estate transaction?
Title people are not realtors. We
Mhm.
are not lenders.
Mhm.
We make sure. So I'm gonna just go from the beginning. When you get a real estate contract, you've
Mhm.
already been pre-approved.
Mhm.
You've already met your real estate agent. You've already found a house.
Right.
That file comes to me in the form of an email. Just send me the
Mhm.
contract and the lender's contact. Your title people do the research to make sure the property that house sits on does not hold any liens that you would inherit at closing.
Mhm.
Mortgages, judgments, delinquent taxes, sewage balances, anything that could physically be filed as a lien against the property.
Mhm.
It's our job to make sure are removed before you sit down at the closing table. And that can, every single title search that we review, you could be neighbors on the same street and have two completely different, historical title
Mhm.
deed chains and situations and estates. So every single deal that we do is so very, very different.
Mhm.
Um, but we order lien certificates from the township. We order title search from the county and,
Mhm.
abstractors at our title company. And then, just the train that's moving nice and slow to the station.
Mhm.
We make sure that all the paperwork comes. We're very time oriented to make sure, everything is done so that the paperwork comes in because we create the closing statement,
Mhm.
the money,
Mhm.
we do the money, buyer gives us the money, the lender gives us the money. We pay the realtors, we pay the mortgage payoffs off.
Mhm.
We pay all of this, fees on the closing statement. We record the deed and mortgage so they become public record
Mhm.
and we issue the buyer a title insurance policy that's good for the lifetime that they own the house. So we do a lot of background work. Buyers don't usually know who we are.
Mhm.
They don't really even care because they're so wrapped up in their inspection and their appraisal and
Right.
what color carpet and what color
Mhm.
paint. They're so wrapped up in an emotional process that we really don't try to interfere or I'm going to use the word agitate because sometimes they get confused.
Mhm.
The realtor is generally the liaison for them with us, but we come in at the end and we sit down at the closing table with you, and we close the deal with a level of confidence so that, when they're walking away the last minute, they feel positively
Mhm.
towards all the players on the transaction and walk away knowing, like, that's the team they're going to use again next time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I might have answered like 4 of your questions at once.
And you may have, but that was good. Now, how is the title insurance company different from a closing company or a settlement company? Because we hear
Okay,
those
I
names and it's
understand.
yeah.
So I am a closing company. I
Mhm.
am a settlement company. can be called a title company.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, the way to break this down is you have an Erie Insurance, a State Farm, and Allstate.
Mhm.
They are the national, companies, and they have agents in all different places. Your title people locally are an agent of a much bigger company. Blue Sky personally writes through Fidelity National Title and First American. They are two of the national underwriters who has a very high volume claims um, bank account, really,
Mhm.
so that when a consumer has a title issue after their closing and they need to file a claim
Mhm.
against the policy that we wrote to them at the table,
Mhm.
and they go to Fidelity, they go to First American, they can know with confidence that it will be defended
Mhm.
on their behalf by attorneys. So if you're buying a house that's $200,000,
Mhm.
your title insurance company will issue an owner's policy to you,
Mhm.
good for up to $200,000 in claims, and that policy is good for the lifetime that you own your property.
Mhm.
So if you get a delinquent tax bill from a prior owner, you
Mhm.
simply call the title company, Blue Sky, that closed it. We help you file a claim with the company who insured it
Mhm.
under us or over us, and they'll get it paid on your behalf so that claim does not burden you.
Oh, okay.
Things like that.
Okay.
But that's how it's different.
Does people a lot know, does the buyers often know that they're supposed to call you guys for the claim? Like, do they know where to go for that
No,
claim?
not usually.
Okay.
Buyers post closing can call us for all different kinds of things.
Uh-huh.
We are always teaching consumers when it's appropriate to file a claim. We
Mhm.
get a lot of phone calls,
Mhm.
not a lot of claim calls, but just a lot of curiosity calls
Mhm.
post closing. Title insurance claims are very infrequent,
Mhm.
rare. I will use the word rare, but just like your fire insurance policy, we don't expect your house is going to burn down, but you have the insurance anyway.
Right.
Title insurance is a rare situation, and I would say they probably call the real estate agent first.
Mhm.
And it's the real estate agent that says, this sounds like a title claim.
Mhm.
You should call Blue Sky, or the realtor will tell us and we will reach out to the consumer.
Okay.
But there are very, very few instances. And I want to say it's because we do our jobs right,
Mhm.
you know, because we're doing everything that we can before closing. There are very few claims filed afterwards,
Okay.
but they usually call the realtor first and us second.
Okay.
But
And then real quick on that, just in case someone says they say like lenders require title insurance. So some people
yes,
might say, okay, there's the lender's part and then there's my part, the owner's part. What's the difference with that?
most lenders, I
Mhm.
will say, do require title insurance.
Mhm.
There's been some changes in like government policy where they tried to offer programs from lenders that do not require a lender's title insurance or an owner's title
Mhm.
policy. You know, I can't speak to that because I've seen worst case scenarios.
Mhm.
But in the normal, everyday, standard situation, you have a contract between a buyer and seller who are not related.
Mhm.
You have a lender, let's say, we'll just say with a $200,000 sales price again, and your mortgage is, say, $175,000.
Mhm.
Your lender is going to require a lender's policy good for the lifetime that their loan is open,
Mhm.
right? Because there are times where they're going to have to take the property over
Yeah.
and they're going to become involved in litigation,
Mhm.
and they want the same coverage that you have as an owner,
Mhm.
but their coverage decreases as their loan value decreases.
Mhm.
But so you have to pay for the lender's title policy. The owner's title policy will appear as optional. In fact, it is optional.
Mhm.
However, the value of what your owner's policy would cost is extraordinarily minimal in most cases.
Mhm.
It is um, not, in my opinion, favorable to waive an owner's title insurance policy if you're not looking at how much does it cost you this one time. You
Mhm.
pay title insurance one time in your life at your purchase closing, and it's good for the lifetime that you own that house,
Right.
5 years, 10 years, 30 years.
Mhm.
I have seen owners' title insurance policies truly defend ownership because the prior title company from 15 years ago never recorded the deed.
Mhm.
I have seen the most unusual title insurance cases
Mhm.
because I've done this for so
Yeah.
long. This isn't something that happens yearly, it just happens over a period of time that you pay for it one time. If you're going to even consider waiving the owner's title insurance just to save money at closing, just be sure that you do your due diligence, that you read the pros and cons, and that you really look at how much you're saving for a lifetime guarantee.
Mhm.
I would not advise my own family to purchase without title insurance. It's very hard to watch a consumer do it, but it is personal choice, and some people don't want to pay it. And
N
that's,
Now how does that look if they decide after they purchased
you
it? Can
can't purchase it
okay.
later.
All right.
You cannot.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not
Yeah.
that any not that you
Okay.
cannot
So that's
purchase it
good for them
later.
to know that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what is a title search? We mentioned that. Why is that important? So important.
Yeah, title search is the paperwork produced. So it used to be human beings at the courthouse that I would hire independently to physically open books in the county, deeds, mortgage books, power of attorney books, and handwrite up a document for me to review later and see what's open, what's not. But it has come full circle in the last 30 years that now I order a search through my title company. As soon as I get an order, I let my title company know I need a search product on, 123 Main Street.
Mhm.
They have likely, based on how often properties are transferred, right,
Mhm.
resold, they likely have the history of this particular property already recorded somewhere. I think when it came out, we called it blockchain.
Mhm.
There's a blockchain of titles that's being created in a national database, right?
Right. Mhm.
So searches used to take weeks to come back. In the
Yeah.
spring market, we can get searches back now in a few days because of this blockchain technology. So, but it's basically a report, a 60-year report of the history of the property, owners, deeds, mortgages, judgments, tax liens, estates. It reveals who has um, any potential to file a claim on this house,
Okay.
and we make sure all of that gets cleared before we sit you down with you at the closing
Okay.
table.
Now, someone might say, we'll go back to that title insurance. They might say, well, why do I need it to? You guys did a thorough
They
title
do
search.
say that. They do
Okay.
say that.
So
They
what?
often say that.
Yeah.
They'll say, "Well, my great grandmother owned this property, and or I bought it from the developer." And
Mhm.
you have no idea plans that are recorded, developer liens that never went away. There things that happen in your own lifetime, like the mortgages I've taken out, the
Mhm.
taxes I haven't paid. Like
Mhm.
my children cannot say, well, my mother's owned that house for 30 years. I've done things in the 30 years
Mhm.
that could, attach
Uh,
and affect the next owner. So I would not issue a title policy without a search,
okay.
and nobody should.
Okay. And what does the title insurance protect the buyers from?
Things that I mentioned: mortgages, judgments, tax liens, heirs that could file a claim against the property
Mhm.
from their grandfather's estate.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things revealed in a title search. Um, oh, let's try to think of a good scenario that is kind of tricky. I'll just powers of attorney.
Mhm.
Powers of attorney have kind of devalued themselves over the last 20 years because of, just criminal behavior.
Mhm.
Family members, there's so much fraud and family members trying to steal
Uh-huh.
like familial property that, when a power of attorney comes in, We have to verify its authenticity. We have to verify, was this done with witnesses? Does this satisfy the Pennsylvania standard
Mhm.
for real estate in 2026?
Mhm.
Do they have siblings? We look at people's estates. Did they specifically devise a property to one of their children who's now deceased? Does
Mhm.
that child have other children? I mean, we get to the nitty gritty of ownership.
Mhm.
There's the most common thing I see on title searches that needs to be cleared is a prior owner mortgage.
Mhm.
I've owned my house for, 25 years. When I go to sell it, there is a potential, because I haven't done a search in all these
Uh-huh.
years, there is the possibility that the person who sold my house to me, that their mortgage was never properly satisfied after my closing. We are constantly chasing down satisfactions by mortgage companies who did not properly satisfy prior owner liens.
Yeah, okay.
So there's lots of things that if they're not cleared by closing, they will and can attach to the property that we're insuring to a new owner. Lots of things.
Now, how does it look when someone has some, I can't think of the word right now,
Okay.
but some stipulations on their deed,
Oh, yeah.
like like you know.
They're all different.
Okay.
Like I said, every property in every township and even in the same neighborhood is going to be very different. You're going to see, it all depends on who prepared the deed, because some of these historic deeds are real wordy
Mhm.
unnecessarily. When I know that when Blue Sky prepares a deed, we really try to clean up what's absolutely required. And required things on a deed could be rights of ways, like a shared driveway.
Mhm.
If you and I are property owners right next door to each other, and we have one driveway that goes up the middle, and you have your garage and I have my garage, that's a shared driveway.
Mhm.
So those things should be on the deed. If
Mhm.
you live in a private lane, that should be on a deed. What should be on a deed are like access easements and um, if you live in a condo, there's some condo restrictions that should be in a deed. There are some bizarre, I've seen some airport deeds by the airport
Uh-huh.
where it can literally say, like, you can't turn your radio on outside past a certain
Yeah.
time. I mean, there's some crazy
Yeah.
stuff in deeds.
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy stuff.
And there's also stuff in deeds too where you can who you sell to or what type of.
Oh no. No, I mean, I don't do those kind. Like
Okay.
maybe if it's a co-op,
Okay.
maybe if it's a co-op, but no, there are no limitations in a deed. And if they are extremely ancient.
Mm.
Like even oil and gas. Oil and gas, Western Pennsylvania is built over abandoned mines that
Mhm.
are 100 years old,
Mhm.
right? After 100 years, we even take those exceptions off of a deed
Okay.
because they're somewhat irrelevant,
Okay.
So but no, the concept of who you can sell to, the only circumstance I've seen that applied is in a condo.
Mhm.
The association reserves the right of first refusal
Mhm.
because they might want the first chance at that unit.
Mhm.
But in 30 years, I can count on one hand how many times I've seen an association actually retain the right of first refusal.
Okay.
If they have one, they generally waive it. That's the only time I've ever seen an exception on it. It's not even in the deed, it's on
Right.
their resale certificate.
Okay.
So no, they can't. There's some old ones that might say you can't put, you know, chickens on this property. You can't build within 30 feet of the street line.
Okay.
There's some ones that say, like, you can't put a gas station here. It's because these you got to think these are developers who made these plans,
Mhm.
right? So you took all this
Yeah.
land, broke it into streets, and created what you thought would be the perfect neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
They may have put some uh, relevant exceptions to the time
Mm.
that would no longer apply now.
Okay.
Yeah, and title insurance to a degree has wiped out any deed restrictions that are no longer acceptable or relevant. You don't see those anymore. I haven't seen them in years.
Okay. Now, what does when they have like what's that process usually? What happens behind the scenes as far as with the transaction?
We were just saying yesterday that we should have like a realty like television show for title people because it gets crazy. What happens behind the scenes, honestly, I could just what I'll do is break down who works in my office,
Okay.
okay? I am the manager and we have there's 6 staff members. My brother John is my closing manager. So he manages the closing schedule, the balancing of a final closing statement
Mhm.
with the realtors and the lender and the consumers. I have a post closing person who ships packages to the lender. After closing, we have to, ship those
Can
original docs.
can you go back to John? When you
Yeah.
said the statement, is those the Alta and the okay,
Yes.
can you explain because that was one of my
One of your
questions. Can you kinda
questions?
explain those, the HUD
Yes,
and yeah.
definitely. I'll just finish up with my office. So I have a post closer who
Uh-huh.
ships packages. I have a reception person who orders the file soon as it's open, like lien certificate searches.
Okay.
I have 2 processors who do a lot of the phone calls and legwork.
Mhm.
And I have not an HR person, but more of a financial person who helps with balancing accounting, and
Mhm.
she's a backup closer. Yes, there's years and years ago, we only used a settlement statement, which everybody loved.
Mhm.
It's the long form.
Uh-huh.
They in 2015, the government, and I can't disagree with the ruling.
Mhm.
There was a ruling that ultimately the consumer
Mhm.
was coming to the closing table too often, not knowing the terms of their loan.
Mhm.
So I think it was the Obama
Mhm.
administration who came up with Alta CD and
Mhm.
Alta NCD.
Mhm.
The old long form was called HUD.
Mhm.
That just meant Department of Housing and Urban Development. It was
Yeah.
just the new form. We still use HUDs on cash transactions
Mhm.
and transactions for us, like LLCs and on commercial deals. Okay.
Okay.
So we still use HUDs and we love them. The new forms, when there is a loan and just a residential buyer seller, it's an ALTA settlement statement,
Mhm.
which means American Land Title Association. It's an ALTA settlement statement. And then the buyer and the seller each get their own closing disclosure, which is just a separated form where the buyer's loan information is on their closing statement or their closing disclosure, and it must be provided to them at least 3 business days in advance of their closing
Mhm.
with a receipt to the lender.
Mhm.
They must have the opportunity to review their loan terms with their lender before they show up to the closing.
Mhm.
So that's not something that comes from your title company, that must come from your lender.
Mhm.
But we title people do work with your lender very consistently in the days leading up to that disclosure so that it is um, less, there cannot be more than a 10% a change, positive or negative, from the time you get it for review, final review, to the time you close.
Mhm.
So that was done in an effort to make consumers aware and not be left at a closing table, you know, with questions about their loan program.
Okay.
And we title people are not involved in your loan program whatsoever.
Mhm.
We're not involved in that beginning when you get we're I have zero affiliation with any mortgage company. Zero. I have zero affiliation with any real estate company. We
Mhm.
are completely independent
Mhm.
from the everybody else in our market.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
And then there's also a whole bunch of other paperwork that they get at closing too. So,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Is there information too that you have like people can like look at that stuff prior to or kind of know what
We actually, yes, we're very proactive.
Mhm.
We definitely can identify
Mhm.
the personalities who like to read all of their papers.
Mhm.
There are absolutely, it's probably gone down a lot in the last 10 years. Otherwise, what you're getting at the closing table is a complete set, copy set.
Mhm.
So you can read at your leisure
Right.
later if you choose, because you can't change it.
Right.
The disclosure has already been sent, so you know your loan terms.
Right.
The rest of the filler paper is just, red line stuff for your lender.
Mhm.
But yes, if they request it in advance, we are happy to give it to them. We don't generate that paperwork outside of the closing statements and the Alta. The lender generates that
Mhm.
paperwork. That paperwork does not come from their closing team until literally 24 hours in advance. So they can't get it 2 weeks in advance, but if they want it
Mhm.
or we feel like they're probably the need to know kind of people and we offer it to them,
Uh-huh.
we will send it to them securely in advance to review, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and
They
I've
and
heard of that.
otherwise they get a brief description as we're signing.
Okay.
I break it down briefly, and if they wanna read it, they're welcome to.
Okay.
We don't stop anybody from reading, with
Okay.
ever.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's some questions that our viewers are probably curious about. What is the most common problem that delays closings?
Realtors not ordering a dye test timely.
Mm.
We title people have nothing to do with municipal inspections.
Mhm.
Western Pennsylvania is the only place in the country where title people order lien certificates in advance and expend our own funds
Mhm.
to get us to the table timely and get
Mhm.
refunded later.
Mhm.
So at some point, I stopped fronting more than $150 on any township, anything. And some of these dye tests have gotten outrageous, like $350.
Mm.
So we let the realtors know upfront. Realtors should be doing it maybe when they get a listing, like,
Mhm.
look, you're selling this house.
Yeah.
This is always going to be the seller's responsibility, no matter who pays for it.
Mhm.
Your dye test cannot always be scheduled in the same week, in the same 2 weeks, in the same 3 weeks. So the longer there's a delay by the owner or the realtor to order a dye test, the potential of delaying a closing is going to be on the table.
Mhm.
We'll chase them down, but we work so closely with most townships
Mhm.
that we don't want to apply pressure to them. We need them. Your title
Yeah.
people need them.
Mhm.
We are not going to scream at them the way some realtors do. Oh, I need this. No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no. Just order it.
Yeah.
Just order it on time and you'll be all right. So yeah,
That's
when we
true.
when we
Yeah.
have like seasoned realtors who don't order a dye test, we will never tell. Like we're never going to tell the buyer, the other agent. But internally, we're like, they knew better. They knew better. We'll do what we
Yeah.
can to get them to close on time, but we're not in that. We're not in control of everything.
Yeah.
But we try.
Yeah, you're right. Them municipality requirements
Are
put them
crazy.
because they go by schedule sometimes. Sometimes
They
they only do
do.
them a certain time or certain,
Yes. Every
and they get
township's
caught.
different.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's the one mistake real estate agents make? Well, you said it delayed the closing for weeks, which is the die test.
Mhm.
What's something agents often miss in a contract that later becomes a title issue?
Oh, nothing in a contract can become a title issue. I think, a couple years ago they changed the contracts to say that the selling agent must order title with a reputable title agency
Mhm.
within 7 days. That was a significant change because for whatever reason, some realtors did not feel pressure to order and not ordering timely, not sending a contract to a title company timely
Mhm.
will ultimately cause a delay because we need to get those lien letters ordered right away.
Oh yeah.
Um, I've seen some brutal pushback between realtors. For example, I've seen realtors from the same company miss a commitment deadline and the listing agent say, you missed your commitment deadline. Sellers are terminating and keeping your hand money because that's in the contract.
Mhm.
You have to present.
Yeah.
And the listing agent never said, don't forget, we need your commitment. Don't forget.
Yeah.
The listing agent just let that expire. Now,
Mhm.
is that a normal thing to do and customary? No,
Mhm.
to be that unfriendly.
Yeah.
But some people are very aggressive and I don't know. Maybe they had a backup offer that was 100. This was during the time when contracts were going insanely
Right.
over asking.
Mhm.
So maybe they had a backup offer for $100,000. I don't know, but
Okay.
she waited for a chance to strike, and it made
Yeah.
the selling agent look bad to the consumer, even though it was extremely unprofessional and unfriendly.
Mhm.
Um, and that's also personality. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't say that something a realtor would do on a contract. I have seen realtors recently because they just changed the contract to include like CBC
Mhm.
right above seller concession.
Yeah.
So I've seen realtors inadvertently put 3% in the wrong column.
Mhm.
That can cause confusion and cause a seller to pay more than they thought.
Mhm.
It all depends on how you negotiate. I mean, realtors are therapists. I could never be a realtor. I don't want to be a realtor. I like my evenings. I like my weekends. Do I work in my evenings and weekends? Yes, but I'm not in my car. I'm sitting at my desk, usually in my pajamas,
Mhm.
very comfortably getting a ton of work done because my phone doesn't ring.
Mhm.
But they have to be therapists. You have to, when I do for sale by owners,
Mhm.
yes, I'm going to give a seller credit because they do save money
Yeah.
by, not listing their house,
Mhm.
but they fall apart more often than a contract with a realtor because there's not somebody talking you down when your house doesn't appraise, when your inspection is poor. You
Mhm.
know, these people generally, it's generally people who think they can do the job of a realtor's,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, it's your personality versus your seller's personality,
Mhm.
and they'll butt heads because there's so much ego
Mhm.
and emotion. Sellers emotional on the, you know, perspective of that's my house, my blood, sweat, and
Yeah.
tears. I put all this money into it. They have a history,
Yeah.
and buyers are emotional because it's a huge financial purchase.
Mhm.
So you're therapizing to emotional parties.
Right.
The realtors are.
Yeah.
We try to stay out of that, but when it's a for sale by owner, they drag us in.
Mm.
They drag us in to talk them off the ledge.
Okay.
So
Okay. Well, that's a
it's
good
a
thing to
tough
mention
gig.
that. Yeah, that's a good thing to mention
Yeah.
too, the for sale by owner.
Yeah.
What is the most misunderstood closing document?
Oh, probably that the note is the IOU to the bank,
Mhm.
and the mortgage is the security instrument that is recorded on behalf of the bank.
Mhm.
So when you have a buyer who's buying it individually or independently of their spouse,
Mhm.
but they want their spouse on the deed and they want their spouse on title, the spouse has to be on the security instrument. So at the closing, husband and wife will be on the deed.
Mhm.
Husband or wife will be on the IOU. The note
Mhm.
is your credit was approved, your income was approved, you were the responsible party to make these payments.
Right.
The mortgage is the security instrument husband and wife will both be on.
Mhm.
If you're on the deed, you're on the mortgage, because if it was just husband and wife on the deed, husband or wife on the mortgage, and only husband or wife on the note, then technically the other party could stay in the house if it was foreclosed. So
Mm.
you're on the security instrument if you're on the deed, because you have to leave if your spouse stops making mortgage payments.
Okay.
So people get confused
Hmm.
between note and mortgage. The note is the IOU, the mortgage is the security instrument.
Okay. Well, that's a good piece of knowledge there.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Okay.
They get confused also by tax prorations.
Yeah.
Western Pennsylvania is very tricky with taxes,
Mhm.
but I do always take a minute to explain how taxes are prorated and how your future taxes are paid. So
Mhm.
that can be confusing.
Yeah.
hmm
Okay.
And mine subsidence insurance. Mine subsidence insurance really freaks people out in Western PA,
Mhm.
but they just need to know. They just need to know that it's there and they can purchase it from the state if they're interested.
Okay. Now, what's one thing that we haven't talked about that you want the viewers to know about,
Title?
title? Yeah.
A viewer being, I don't know if a viewer is the consumer, if the viewer is the realtor, if the viewer, I would say just review your docs in advance.
Mhm.
I did see one question you had was what should the realtor look at? We have realtors sometimes that don't look at the closing statement. We send that closing statement out well in advance
Mhm.
of a closing.
Mhm.
They won't forward it to their consumer. They won't even
Mhm.
review it. And then they'll get to the closing table or after the closing and tell me their commission is wrong.
Mhm.
No, 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 no. That was sent. Like, we always will fix it,
Mhm.
but you have a responsibility to look at it, you know? So that always surprises me when a real estate agent does not review the actual closing statement on their own or with the consumer.
Mhm.
We're willing to do it, but I don't want to say it's not our job.
Mhm.
It is the lender who's producing that closing disclosure.
Yeah.
So the lender really should be walking the consumer through that days in advance. By the time they get to the closing, I kind of expect them to know more, but I still do the closing as if they don't know anything.
Mm.
I still walk them through as if
Yeah.
they're just learning today what their interest rate is.
Yeah.
So,
And when you said that real quick though, on that statement, usually the questionable things are again the agent's commission
mhm.
and anything else that's usually
Questioned.
yeah.
Buyers and sellers don't generally know what the like administrative fees are to a
Mhm.
realtor, and every office has an administrative fee.
Yeah.
So I think that could be something that's explained to the consumer in advance. A lot of times people just shoot from the hip
Mhm.
and they'll see something that's on the other side and assume that it's theirs. Like, what's this?
Mhm.
So it's really just they move too fast. They just move, they just need to slow down. But, I would say sellers might have paid their sewage and they want us to remove the current sewage bill that we got from the township.
Mhm.
But it's inheritance tax when there's an estate,
Mhm.
consumers have a question about inheritance tax. But I want to say for the majority,
Mhm.
they come to the closing like a deer in headlights.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
I feel very maternal at a closing
Mhm.
because I know that I know more on this one subject than everybody in that room.
Yeah.
And I want them to feel comfortable that they picked Blue Sky and that I want them to know when they leave that they're confident in what they signed. So I don't have expectations of much because they're so excited to just be done and get into the house.
Mhm.
I really just take my time and I tell them sometimes I'm going to write them mom notes because all of these buyers are, my daughter's age and
Mhm.
I feel a maternal, value there where I can give them information that's useful when they leave.
Okay.
So, on the
Okay.
buyer side for the most part, yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. I just so my podcast is Seeking Wisdom Through Real Estate.
Mhm.
So what's a piece of wisdom that you'd like to give our viewers today?
Oh, I mean, I would just say again, competition breeds innovation. I
Mhm.
mean, you you kind of I've always been 4 steps ahead of thinking, what do I need to do next so that I'm not falling behind?
Mhm.
Whether that was with staff, with software,
Mhm.
with education, with advertising, and with consumer value.
Mhm.
So I would say just always be aware of what your next step is going to be. And, you know, when it comes to real estate, I did not invite either of my children to work in this industry.
Mhm.
I had one of my daughters interned at Blue Sky
Mhm.
in the summer, and I think we both hated it,
Mhm.
because she like didn't take me seriously. She took the job seriously,
Yeah.
but she needed to be with a boss who wasn't related to really learn
Mm.
how to, perform in a
Mhm.
workplace. And so I didn't invite them into this industry because it's very stressful.
Mhm.
It's very stressful. I bought one of those Aura rings because I have a functional medicine doctor who told me my stress on my blood work looks like I'm sprinting from a bear on a daily basis.
Oh wow.
So I have made some um, life choices
Mhm.
to reduce my level of stress.
Yeah.
You cannot, it's a very stressful industry. Just know what you're getting into. If this is not a full time gig for you, your peers are they notice
Yeah.
because, you need to be on all the time, available all the time if you want to be successful in this
Mhm.
in this industry.
Yeah.
And things are going to change. I mean, we thought rates were going down and now, you know,
Mhm.
the government had other plans,
Yeah.
and so things are going to change, and you never know where it's going to go. You never know what your paycheck's going to look like the next month. You have to be willing to sacrifice and balance and compete,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm. But you still see people buying and selling a lot. You used to have a lot of closings.
I'm going to say 2020. when it opened back up. We were essential, so we worked all through COVID. We were
Mhm.
not privileged to sit at home with our children.
Mhm.
We worked with a whole new breed of human behavior
Mhm.
during COVID. And when the rates dropped, it was out of control.
Mhm.
2020 was an incredible year for title. 2021 was even better.
Mhm.
20 from 22 to 25, it slowed down, where you reduce your staff.
Mhm.
Um, and now 26, there's it's been consistent
Mhm.
for months, but we're in a war now.
Mhm.
I have no idea what's going to happen. I have
Mhm.
no idea. We thought rates were going to. We saw rates dropping.
Mhm.
We were expecting an outstanding
Mhm.
um, spring market, but I only know what I mean. We're the same age.
Mhm.
I don't know as an owner, like a business
Mhm.
person, how this war is going to affect the household behavior.
Mhm.
I mean, it might, I don't know how many people are going to be leaving. A lot of people aren't leaving because their interest rates are under 4%.
Yeah.
I owned, two houses in Pittsburgh. One I live in, one is a rental. I'm under 4% in both.
Mhm.
That why would I sell those?
Yeah.
Why would I make a move? So you're dealing with that, and you're
Mhm.
now dealing with the discomfort of like gas prices going up and
Yeah.
groceries going up, and
Mhm.
people who thought they could jump into the next family size have to really consider what's that going to look like in 5 years,
Yeah.
you know? So I really don't know. I'm not an economist. I
Mhm.
love of all the speakers I follow or listen to, I love economists. They
Mhm.
really can break down a scenario,
Yeah.
So if you ever have the chance to catch a, Pittsburgh real estate economist, that's where you'll get good
Okay.
advice.
All right.
Yeah,
Now, how can people reach you, Katie?
you can call me.
Mhm.
I always tell consumers, and I'm we advertise a lot in like Bethel Park and surrounding townships.
Okay.
A, a lot of Allegheny gets in the In Community magazine
Mhm.
gets our little article that we write, but you can call the office. We have a beautiful website, and I tell people call. They can text me. I'm always available. I
Mhm.
always want the consumer to have a level of confidence that if they're working with Blue Sky, they always have our ear. We're there for them. We respond pretty immediately to emails, and but yeah, they can call me
Mhm.
957-263 or email me katie.manarino at Blue Sky CSI.
Okay.
Well, I'll give
And
you
I'll
something.
put
You
in
put
my
it up.
description.
Yeah,
Yep. Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. All right, Katie. Well, I enjoyed my time with you.
Me too. We should
Uh,
go to lunch. I talk a lot.
no, I think it'd be great for the viewers. They'll enjoy it.
Good, good.
All right. So please subscribe, like, and share this video. Comment and let me know if you have anything that you think about that you want to
Yeah.
see in the future videos. And also see you next week when we will be seeking more wisdom through real estate. God bless.